Okay, so the reason that I wanted to hold this particular session and do this particular live was I've had quite a few different prophetic messages and yeah, I guess, future prophecies really is the best term for it, or predictions from my spirit guide, but also a number of other spirit guides as well that I would communicate with. It's not always the same people that I connect to. Sometimes I'll have new people coming through. And for anybody that isn't aware of how I work, just not Courtney in. So for anybody who isn't aware of how I work with spirit only. I don't use cards or anything like that. And the way that I communicate with spirit is in my thoughts. So they will sometimes just give me information, or I might ask them for information, or I might ask to clarify certain parts of the information that they give me. And the way that I do that is just in my mind and my thoughts. I create the question as if I'm just thinking of something. They'll pick it up and then they'll bring the response through to me. So I describe it as a bit of a telepathy. And the way that I receive information from spirit, there's a number of different ways. So one of them is that I hear, and that is that I'll hear a minimum of one word, might be a short phrase or a full sentence, but it's always a minimum of one word. Apologies for Rosie in the background for anybody that is following my content at the minute. Will be aware that I have a little puppy dog and she is a bit barky at the minute. Yeah, she's a little bit barky. So I hear and I also see. Now that doesn't mean that I see people. Sometimes I do, but in most cases, seeing the person isn't relevant. And what I will see are things like facial expressions, body language, an apple cart being overturned because someone has upset the apple cart. So it's a lot of symbolism and imagery that I would see. And then I also feel energy and emotion as well on top of that. And sometimes spirit will just pop information into my head and I'm not really sure how it has come through. But whenever spirit are working with me, they bring me information through in all of these ways at once. So I'm sort of getting it every which way possible. It does mean that I'm able to clarify information and really, validate and drill down into the information that they're giving me. In most cases, it's not exactly black and white how things have happened or how they will happen, but they're giving us a bit of a generic broad brushstroke overview. They do have the ability to give additional information if they want, but in most cases they will choose not to, because we're not always supposed to know. And really, it's not up to us to question and understand why. They're the ones that are in the driving seat. I'm simply the channel that brings the information through. So there are a couple of different prophecies that they've already given me. And some of those will have been on TikTok. Some of them have been posted on YouTube. There's a few that have come up repetitively as well. But I know that they have some additional ones that they wish to share as well this evening. And they also are eager to bring through some, a bit of a picture really of what life is going to be like moving forward, to try and bring some reassurance and comfort through to us, because, we all have things in our personal lives as well that, can be turbulent and, have a negative connotation to it. And there are a lot of things like that that are going on within the general population as well at the minute, and just in the world in general. And I think that it's the nature of life that we're always going to have that. Sometimes we will have more of that than others, but there's always a purpose and a reason behind it. And one of the big things at the moment that we're sort of in the midst of and heading deeper into is this period of turbulence. And now, I'm not a religious person. I don't associate with religion. I'm not particularly interested necessarily in the Bible or scriptures or anything like that. But one of the things that actually has been coming forward quite recently is that we're in a time of Bible prophecy and prophecies that are actually coming to fruition. So we're in a period now where a lot of, things that were talked about in the Bible are starting to come to fruition. And, I can I can actually volunteer information here. It was a few years ago, and I was just about to have surgery. I think I was in for surgery the next day, and I started hearing second coming, rapture, and something else, and it was just on repeat, and it was much louder than what I would usually hear. Spirit very, very prominent. And I was quite concerned, thought maybe I needed, to have some medication at that stage. And it was a friend of mine that I knew actually sent me a message, and she said, oh, I keep hearing these things, but we haven't talked about this. And I was just so relieved that she was hearing them as well. So I knew then, even though I didn't really have a full idea of what second coming and rapture and all of that meant, I knew that it was connected to the Bible, and really from there I was able to build on that. So I've been able to have like a bit of a better understanding of what we were headed into, even though I didn't know exactly how things would unfold. And I must admit, even with the information that I've been given, I'm still not really sure exactly how things will unfold. I've been given little bits of information, and I always describe, how I receive information, and generally how I give information even to people in a private reading. We're given bits of information, and if you can think of a 500-piece jigsaw puzzle, and in that message we're given 3 or 4 pieces. So it would be natural, as humans, for us to try and join those dots and try and build the picture out, but it's not always possible to do that, and we can often make incorrect assumptions. But we're definitely given, a bit of a broad brushstroke, like this is the sort of thing that's happening. One thing that I did want to mention, actually, whenever Spirit bring prophecies through, things don't necessarily happen in the order that they bring them through. And that is certainly one thing that I've learned over a period of time. They don't bring them through in a linear fashion. They might bring something through that's going to happen 10 years from now, and then follow up with something else that is actually going to happen a week from now. Okay. So I just wanted to make that clear as well. And also, be honest about the fact that, I'm still learning. I learn something new about this every day, something new about spirit communication, and maybe reflect on things that I have learned to improve and sharpen my skills, where I have automatically linked something that shouldn't have been linked, but I'll know for the next time. So I don't think that there would ever be a time when I can ever say that I am 100% proven and accurate. And I just don't think that anybody in human form can ever claim that about anything, because we are fallible, we're human, and we're not perfect. None of us are perfect. So it is always a massive learning curve, but at the same time I am proven enough that I am very confident with the information that Spirit gives me, in terms of being able to provide that as a prophetic message. And definitely one thing that I've found is that timelines can change a little bit. Spirit can be very reluctant to give timelines. However, even when the timeline changes, I'm still very confident that they're accurate. And even whenever they're giving me a message, they're pretty confident that it's going to occur at that stage. They're not wishy-washy with me in terms of the information that they give. So by the time I'm delivering a message to you guys or whoever is listening, we're pretty certain that is going to happen. And of course, things can change direction, but by the stage that they're giving it to me, they're pretty confident that it's set to occur at some stage, and there's not really going to be much movement away from that. Okay. I do want to say as well that it is symbolic what they give me. As I said, it's not exactly black and white how things happen or how they will happen, but it's really to paint a bit of a picture of what the energies are at that particular time and the sort of thing that is set to occur. Sometimes they will bring stuff that's very, very specific through, and I will always give that if they're giving it to me at that particular time. And also sometimes, it's an over exaggeration as well, whenever they have to really bring that energy through to me to ensure that I understand it. So an example of that might be that I'm being told that someone is furious, and I'm seeing somebody with an angry face stamping their foot. And in a private reading, somebody might say to me, well, I wouldn't really use furious to describe it. I was a bit annoyed, but I wasn't, furious. So it's just so they can make sure that they get the energy through to me. Okay. But, I would always encourage you to not try and draw too many dots until things start to materialize. We're given a bit of a general direction with this information, but if Spirit is wanting for us to step in and prevent anything at some stage, we will be told what to do in order to prevent that. But usually whenever they're giving us this information, it's more of a forewarning and more of a trying to build trust in the spirit realm, and what is set to occur, and bring reassurance really that it does serve a purpose, and to build out the picture past any turbulence. And I feel like I've used the word turbulence, on a few occasions here. And the reason for that is because actually there's quite a lot of the prophetic messages that I have had over the last few years that have related to turbulence. And I was told about, I think it was in the June or July before Russia invaded Ukraine, that there was a significant war that was to come, but I hadn't paid any attention to that at that time, because I thought, well, it's not going to impact on me. I'm in England, we're safe, nothing's going to happen to us. The US is going to be fine. And I had not really considered that it could be a significant impact on us. And one of the prophetic messages actually that I had been getting was about the war, and that the war would spread out past Russia and Ukraine. So whenever the Russia and Ukraine conflict first started, I know that it had been going on for a little while, but whenever it first came to the forefront and was on the news, that day that Russia invaded Ukraine, I was told quite quickly that this wasn't set to be contained, and that it is set to escalate over a number of different continents, and into different countries. And my guide is actually describing it now as Russia against the world. And I know Russia, I expect that they will have their own allies and whatnot, but she is showing me that this is escalating and will continue to escalate. And I was originally told that something was set to occur by Christmas of last year, and it didn't happen within that timeline, but they have really maintained with me that that is set to occur, and they keep saying that it's certain at this stage. So I know that they're pretty confident that this is going to happen. And I get things like it's on the verge, it's imminent, it's happening in a short duration. Spirits' sense of time can often be very, very different to ours. That's one thing that I've learned, without a doubt. They can tell us that something is short, going to happen in the short term or soon, and it can be still 18 months away. But I guess, whenever we live for, 85 years, actually 18 months is short term when spirit look at it like that. But either way, although I'm not able to give, and I'm reluctant to give the specific timeline, I am being told that this is something that is set to occur. I hope that everybody can hear me okay. Rosie, bless her, is a little bit off colour at the minute because she's got a bit of a sore ear, so she's a little bit more anxious than usual. And my 9-year-old daughter is so engrossed in her iPad and chocolate treats that she's probably not realizing that she needs to give her some attention. So one of the things, as I say, is the war. So that is something that is set to escalate. And my guide is saying sharpish, and she's clicking her fingers. So that would lead me to think that this is going to be sooner rather than later. And I just thought in my head there, but it could be 6 years away. And she said not 6 years, not 6 years. So this is something that is coming quicker. And she's pointing out just a number of different key political figures here, faces that I would recognize. And she sends symbolism for the connection. So I'm seeing Joe Biden from the US. I'm seeing Rishi Sunak from the UK. I'm seeing another foreign leader as well. It could be France or Germany or something. I'm not 100% sure which, but she's just really trying to paint me a picture of the involvement of the different parts. What she is showing me is certainly, I don't want to say for sure that it's NATO countries, but it certainly looks like there is a bit of a coalition forming almost, or has formed or will form, because I'm seeing people grouping together and sort of coming together in terms of forming a united front against Russia and whoever their allies might be. But I'm not really sure. This is unusual because this isn't what I thought initially. She keeps saying start on the ground. She's saying boots on the ground first, which isn't what I this is different information to what I was originally told, because I was told about bombs dropping and, you know, coming from the air, and but she has said about feet on the ground, so, and boots on the ground. So there must be some reason why she's bringing that through, but that is something that she's said about it being quite prominent. So there's some reason why she's bringing that through. So definitely war. And she has said that it's set to occur for a long duration as well. Now, I don't know at which point it's going to filter out into different countries and different continents, but this information she's given me now is really mimicking what she had told me initially, that this was set to go on for a number of years. You know, it's going to be a significant, long drawn out war. One of the things that she is also drawing me to, and I don't know whether this is a direct impact from the war or from something else, but she has said about food shortages, and this is something that I was talking about, I think, from definitely for about a year and a half anyway, for a good year and a bit, about the food shortages, and that they would become more prominent. Now, what she has shown me, because I know in the UK for sure we have already been experiencing some of this for various different reasons, you know, shortages with the fruit and vegetables. And one of the things that she has shown me is it's like the food shortage, it's just up and down for a bit. That's really what she's showing me. She's not showing me stable. It's like, you know, the tomatoes are in stock, but the bell peppers aren't now for a week. And now the bell peppers are back, but we've got no cucumbers. So it's a bit like, I don't even know what you would call it, but it's higgledy-piggledy. There's no real consistency, what she's showing me there. Another thing which she's showing me as well is a storage cupboard. I suppose like your staples, you know, like your lentils, your tinned foods, flour, things like that. She's saying that they'll start to become short in a short duration, and she's saying about pulses and things. So if you're into like making your soups or stews or things like that, she's really showing me that those are set to become shortages. So I don't know how quickly that's going to become prominent. She's also showing me things like makeup remover, shampoo, all of those things that we just take for granted, I guess. Because she's saying about shortages on the ingredients list. So there must be a reason why the ingredients for those products are not available. Even processed foods, you know, ready-made pizzas and, you know, pizza pockets, fish fingers, things like that, like those sorts of things are, as well, and ready-made meals. She's showing me again shortages. So I don't know whether that's ingredient shortages because of the food or what, but really the shortages all around is what she has been showing me. So that's one thing that she is bringing through. It's something here. She's showing me like women tweezing their eyebrows instead of having their eyebrows waxed, and having to go back to, you know, shaving their legs instead of having their legs waxed and things like that. She said one thing is about unable to afford. So I know that there's going to be some financial implications there, but unemployment, she's just said about unemployment. She said about a large amount of unemployed people. That sort of goes against, because I always thought when there was a war that unemployment was less because everybody was given a purpose, and but she's saying not the case at this stage, too large amounts. So it could be that the population maybe is too large for everybody to be able to serve a purpose here. But she is leading me to like unemployment being some sort of, you know, something significant here, and that obviously not everybody will be impacted by that, but she's certainly leading me towards, you know, issues around people being able to afford, you know, the normal beauty products, but could be even that the price of those things is escalated, you know, whenever the therapists are trying to buy the wax and things like that in, that it's, you know, it's different. This is where I start to say, you know, we as humans are naturally thinking, oh, well, it must be because of this, it must be because of that. We can make a mistake here by trying to join the dots without having all of the information. She's only giving us little bits of information here, but it's our human nature to want to put all of this together, which isn't really the best option. Okay, so that's one thing that she is showing me. And even like, makeup and, all of the natural beauty products that we would use. She's also showing me nappies that, and diapers, I guess, if you're in the US, and there being like shortages with things like that as well. So again, these are really going to impact like everyday items that we're using. It's not just food, it's cleaning products. It's the dish soap that we would use if you have a dishwasher, like the dishwasher fluid or tablets that you might use. So it's going to impact on a large aspect of our lives in some way. Some may be more impacted than others. She has said that it's very important to be cooking fresh at this stage and getting used to that, because whenever she's showing me takeaways, like takeout shops, restaurants, even again, having a shortage of food and not being able to provide a full service. And she's also drawing me to people who might be more used to buying something that just needs to be reheated in the oven, where they're not having to really cook from scratch. But she's really bringing an emphasis in here about cooking from scratch, and is even showing me the animals in the house being fed off of the scrap food, feeding your dog the fresh stuff rather than the tinned products. So she's bringing in all of that. So it's all geared towards us, cooking from scratch, and, cooking something that you've seen on the TV or cooking from a cookbook. I really enjoy cooking, which I'm pleased about. But the food source, she has said, will probably start to become more localized. I'm not sure how quickly that would roll in, but she's really showing me people sourcing food more locally. So more local food, and also like growing our own and joining forces as a community in order to, grow vegetables and pooling resources. And she's previously shown me, people who are living in, a housing area where there is a patch of land. Perhaps there is no gardens where they live. They don't have individual gardens, but there is a patch of land, and they're sort of clubbing together. And those who are green fingered are, growing carrots and potatoes and different vegetables, and they're really joining forces as a community. So whenever we talk about that, there are a lot of positives that, come from things like that. And one aspect, going into a war and being a part of a war, being impacted in some shape or form by a war, does bring about hardship in some regard for many people. Not everybody will be impacted in the same way, but we will certainly feel hardship in some ways more than others, and everybody at different levels, I would expect, as well. But she has said that we will all be hit in some shape or form, so I would expect that there will be some form of hardship really for everybody to experience. However, there are a large amount of positives that come from that as well, because it does bring us closer to our neighbours and our friends. She talks about it bringing us back to basics, and instead of sitting in front of technology and working ourselves to death and obsessed with TikTok and the iPad, when there's blackouts, all of a sudden you're sitting with your family members and you're doing a puzzle or you're playing a board game and spending time having conversation. And she talks all the time about conversation being a lost art. So it's very, very good to be able to go back to basics and actually experience all of those things and develop our skill set, and develop a kinship for each other and supporting each other when it comes to our neighbours and things like that. She's even saying about how there's a lot of us don't really know who our neighbours are. We don't really have any knowledge of who lives next door, behind, across the road. We don't know their names. We don't really know much about them. We don't really see each other very often. And what she's showing me with the war coming, I don't know if it's at the start of the war, middle of the war, end of the war, but I'm seeing people knowing each other and sharing resources. And so there's a large amount of positives there that really come from that. So I think it just is important to reflect on that whenever we think of the hardship and the turbulence that we would experience in such a scenario. However, another thing that she is talking about as well is the grief, and there being a large amount of grief because of unfortunately, whenever we're in a war, there are lives that are lost. It's an inevitable factor. And one of the things that comes through grieving as well is this search for something more, and this search for connection, because we want to connect with our loved one and we don't want to see the pain and hardship of those around us who are grieving and suffering the loss of their loved ones and the tragedy that really comes from that. However, it does bring us closer to death. Whenever you think, depending on where you are in the world and the traditions, whenever someone passes away, we don't really get involved with that process. There's a lot of us that don't really get involved with that process. And whenever we are in the full fledges of war, that's really not going to be an option. We will have to become very, very involved in that process, whether it's for our own loved ones, wherever we're able to, or, for those that are around us. And she's showing me community members, performing burials. I don't know if that's going to be a common practice or if it's just going to come up on occasion, but really to depict that, how she's bringing it through, she's showing me the funeral homes and the undertakers and those people within our community that would typically take on that role, having queues out the door and they're unable to cope with it. So that would really tell me, keeping in mind, spirit use symbolism to communicate their message. Really from that's telling me that there are a large amount of deaths that are set to occur. I don't know if it's specifically from the war or if there's something else, but it would really tell me that we're ill-equipped to deal with what is ahead. So we have to look for other resources in order to, ensure that we're able to provide that sort of service to the people who, are crossing over into spirit. So we have that aspect of it, but we also have the aspect where we're then starting to develop this search for, connection. Our loved one has passed over, so we really want to develop a connection with them, and we start to question, well, is there an existence? Is that person still with us? Whenever we look back at wars that have happened historically, mediumship really starts to come to the forefront. And that's certainly what I have been seeing lately, is more and more people that are developing their spiritual gifts and are becoming more aware of their spiritual capabilities. So, I have seen, whenever I've even been doing readings for people that are only starting to becoming aware, and I'm being told, you're going to be on the stage, and I can see, people, in community centres and different places, doing mediumship for people, evidential mediumship, which is what I would call, when they're bringing through a loved one and they're able to describe them and talk about their personality and give that person that's receiving the message evidence that their person still exists. So I'm seeing a lot of that, but I'm also seeing a lot of I want to call them prophets. Prophets it's a term that I don't use an awful lot. And the reason being is because my perception of it is that it's very, very attached to the Bible. And therefore I see it as something that is quite religious, or is viewed as something that is quite religious. And I don't necessarily I don't really want to attach myself to any particular religion, even Christianity. The reason being is that I'm really just about connecting to spirit and developing that connection ourselves, and, connecting in with a higher source and being available for everybody from every religion. So I don't really want to attach myself to a religion, but I don't really know what other term I could apply to them apart from, them being prophets. That is really the main word, because I'm seeing people coming in mass, being able to predict various different visions for large amounts of the population and the community, where they're bringing forward visions to help support people and help prepare people for what they're going into, rather than, it's not fear mongering. That's definitely not what it's about. It's about preparation and also showing the force of spirit and the force of a higher power. Okay, that is really one of the big things with prophecy, is proving that this exists. You know, if this event happens, then surely you must see that there is a higher power here that is at play, and that they're very much the ones that are in charge and they're in the driving seat. So that is one thing that I'm really seeing a lot more of, and I don't know exactly how long it'll come to fruition, but I am seeing people, you know, a lot of people coming into their spiritual gifts and onto their spiritual journeys, and people actually progressing very, very quickly, you know, going from 0 to 100 within a 6-month period, where, you know, at month 0 they're only starting to become aware that they have a gift of some kind, and by, you know, 6 months later they're delivering messages to people and charging, and, you know, starting to think about making a living from this. So you know, there's definitely a lot more of that is coming to the surface. There's also a lot more healers coming to the surface, you know, and again, I think we think of like a healer, and I suppose Jesus, you know, for anybody that is aware of who he is or who he was, he is, I suppose, the main healer that I would think of. But we have a lot of healers really coming to the forefront as well, and healing takes many forms. But there's definitely miracles that will be worked through various people. I actually gave a reading to a lady this morning, and I was seeing an angel coming up behind her and really pressing on her and working through her. I was seeing her hands, and then I was seeing the angel hands just behind her. So I know that the power of spirit will be working through various different people all across the world, and miracles will be happening. Now, I think we often think of a miracle as being, you know, the man who couldn't walk and has been wheelchair bound for 30 years. Suddenly, you know, he stands up and he puts the wheelchair under his arm and he walks home. And it's not always as apparent as that when a miracle has happened, but it's definitely those unexplained medical incidents where they maybe don't get as much recognition as what they should, where, you know, someone is cured of cancer, a tumor disappears, you know, that tendon that was the ligament that needed surgery suddenly has repaired itself. Those unexplained things where a person has been healed from a higher being, or they've received healing from someone that's around them. And healing isn't always through touch. You know, you can be healed and be receiving healing, emotional healing, you know, just from being in somebody's presence. And certainly words can be healing as well for people that have like a healing force. So, you know, we're really coming into this era of like holistic healing, and people adapting more to a holistic way of life, being a lot more health conscious and concerned about what they're putting into their bodies, being a lot more concerned about health and fitness, having a lot more care towards animals as well. You know, I find it very bizarre whenever I read things and I watch things about, well, we shouldn't be living with animals, or we, you know, well, that's the wild animal, we shouldn't be, you know, encroaching on their territory. And I can understand that, you know, certainly if we're going to build a road through, you know, the Serengeti, then fair enough. However, whenever we cohabit with animals, or we connect closely with animals, we can start to communicate with them and get a better understanding of their needs and build closer bonds. I am not completely sure that I do believe that we should be completely separate from animals, where it should be humans on this side and the animals on the other, and the two shouldn't come in between. I think that there's an awful lot that we can learn from the animals, but I do want to make that clear that is my personal view and from my own personal experience, rather than that of spirit. However, my guide is saying now that there's no concern on their side. They're, you know, very much in agreement. You know, the two should be able to intermingle and you know, entwine between the two, and there's no concern from them on that part. Now she has said that there's some fresh information that she wants to deliver. And this is in reference to, well, she keeps saying Scottish, Scotland and the Kilts. So she's talking about she's talking about that. So there's something up in Scotland, which is part of the UK for anybody that isn't there. So this is information that I haven't had before. This is some sort of fresh information. She has said about a significant occurrence. So there's something significant that is set to occur in a short time. She has said tragic. So this would be something that would definitely be viewed as a tragedy. I don't know if the event has occurred and will only be uncovered historic, or if it's set to occur at this stage. She is indicating to children though. So there's something connected to children at a young age. And she's just confirming there for me, this isn't something that has occurred already. This is something that is set to occur. And she's just said that's it. So that's all the information that she's giving us. So that's something that is set to occur in a short duration, she has said. So something connected to Scotland, young children, school-age children is what she has said. And she has said about a tragic occurrence. Okay, so there's that is set to happen. But she's not bringing any more information or being any more clearer than that. But there is a large amount of do I really want to? She's saying about there being a large amount of interest that's set to come towards me because of one of my predictions. She's showing me. Well, she's showing impatience. She said about impatience, and she has said about waiting a long duration for this to occur. So this must have been something that I have talked about or predicted maybe for a while ago, or maybe at an early stage. But she said that it's there's been a duration, there's been a long duration while we've waited for this to come to fruition. But she said that it's set to occur in a short duration. But she's not prepared to tell us what it is. So I guess we'll know when it happens, but she's not actually going to tell us now what it is. She said that I'm too rambunctious. Thanks. Yeah, so I can be a bit impatient. You know, I am human. I have my ego and everything still. And, you know, as much as I'm on my spiritual path, it's still a constant effort to be working on myself and improving myself. And certainly my patience and letting go is one thing that I very much still need to work on. I have made vast improvements, but, you know, it's whenever Spirit give me a prediction, sometimes I'm wanting to see it come to fruition straight away. You know, I don't really like to have that patience to wait, but you know, they're certainly teaching me well to have patience. So I think, you know, you're all going to have to be patient on that as well. However, there's quite a few predictions that I have spoke about that have already come to fruition. You know, the women in Iran and the uprising was one of them. I wasn't told specifically that it was Iran. I was told the Middle East. But I knew that was going to occur, and that has obviously come to fruition. There's been another one, but there's a couple of quite big things that they've given me that haven't yet come to fruition. But I'm starting to see those taking shape a little bit because of other information that they've given me around it. But I think we're just going to have to be a bit patient and see what else comes to fruition. Now, obviously, she's talked about some things here that are, you know, quite negative, that aren't necessarily the you know, the most positive things to be talking about, you know, when we're talking about war and death and food shortages. However, there's another one actually that she hasn't touched upon, and that is corruption. Now, one of the things at the minute with Spirit and the information they're giving me, they're very, very eager to stamp out corruption. And that can be the corruption in like large corporations, corruption within governments. They're very, very eager to make sure that corruption is stamped out within these big corporations and, you know, political situations. Now, I have seen certainly in Britain, I have seen the government being almost torn apart and turned to rubble. And this is really to pave the way for something better. You know, for anybody that is familiar with tarot, there's the Tower card, and it's all about things being flattened, the burning building, people are jumping out of it, and the whole world is coming down. But if you think of if you wanted to build a house, you've bought a bit of land that already has a house on it, and you think, you know what, we can do better. We want to build something new. You can't just build on the land as it is. You need to take the house down first. You need to bring in the bulldozers, knock it all to the ground, clear the ground, make sure that you've got a firm foundation, and then build up. And that is very much the same as whenever there's bad things going on in the world, you know, stamping out corruption within politics, within Pfizer, within, you know, Bill Gates, whatever it might be. Whenever we're stamping out corruption, or the war is coming, and there's different things happening there, it's all tearing everything apart. It's basically knocking everything down in order for us to build something better. So this is where the positive aspect of this comes in. And I know that it can be incredibly frightening whenever we're thinking about what we're going into, but I don't want to say that your fears, you know, I don't want to say that you shouldn't be fearful. It is a human emotion, but you know, a good thing is to be able to release that fear and just trust that whatever is set to occur is set to occur for a bigger purpose, and that you will be protected somewhat, whether that's in human form or in spirit form. You know, I don't have a fear of death, but that is my own personal belief, because I just trust that where I'm going is a better place afterwards. And yes, I want to continue on the earth plane for a while yet. I feel like I haven't quite achieved my bucket list yet. In fact, I feel in many regards I'm really only starting to put my bucket list together. But I definitely am not ready to go. However, I'm ready if I'm called. I'm prepared to go, and I'm not frightened at the thoughts of that. But I appreciate that isn't how we, you know, it isn't the same belief and feeling that everybody has. Now, I initially really had to face that whenever I was diagnosed with cancer the first time. And, you know, I'm very lucky to be here today. Like, my cancer did recur, but I've recovered, you know, on both occasions. But it can be frightening for any of you that have experienced that on a personal level, or have had to deal with it with someone around you. Of course, it's incredibly frightening to think that, oh my gosh, you know, not being here, but it does really help. It almost gives you the opportunity to reevaluate and like analyze your thinking patterns around that. And I'm not saying that anything is particularly right or particularly wrong, but it does give you the opportunity to analyze that and sort of question, okay, well, what is it that you're fearful of? And it gives you the opportunity, I suppose, to heal from something. That is one of the things, you know. And if you're very, very fearful of, you know, going into the war and things, try and think of, okay, well, what is it that you are fearful of? And work back from there and see if you're able to overcome any of those fears, or if there's anything that you are able to heal. But it just might not be ready for, you know, for something for you to do at that stage. However, you know, there are a lot of positives that are set to come from this. You know, whenever we think of, you know, the discord within different families and the challenges that we might face with rearing children, you know, there's certainly obstacles in our path and the lives that we lead as people, and everything is so financially oriented. You know, we've got brand names and designers and iPads, and we have to go out and work for them. We have to work 9 to 5, and we've got the commute, you know, and then we've got all of this, you know, gas and electric and whatever else to pay for, and food, and, you know, and then the, you know, medical costs, and then with all of the corruption that is in there, obviously there are people within those pockets that are profiting large amounts that, you know, the general population aren't necessarily benefiting from. You know, they're not getting the same return from the effort that they're putting in. And we spend so much time working, really, that we don't get a good quality of life, I think, in the most part, for a lot of people. And we have to sacrifice, you know, 2 parents working, for example, in order to be able to afford, you know, a certain level of lifestyle, so the kids can have brand names and everything else. But, you know, it's just really what I've been seeing is a complete lifestyle change. And I'm seeing a lot of people returning to farming, because the city jobs aren't there as much. So I am seeing a lot of people returning to farming, hanging up their suits and going back to farming. And I've made the assumption that it's because the city jobs aren't available, but maybe it's out of choice, maybe it's out of necessity. I'm not sure. I know for me personally, if you'd have said that, 3 years ago that I would be thinking of having a farm, I would have laughed in your face. But now I love the idea, of having like some land and pigs and chickens and stables for my horses. And change does happen gradually. The shift happens over time. Nobody changes overnight. A shift is very, very gradual, and it just seeps in gradually. It's the same as corruption happens. It happens gradually. It often doesn't happen, overnight. It's a bit of a gradual process, and we lose a little bit and a little bit and a little bit of our power as people, regardless of what country you belong in and what nationality you have. Whenever we lose power, it is just taken away from us bit by bit. And one of the great examples of that really is whenever we think of the experience of the Jewish people during, the war, and whenever they were in the concentration camps, their rights and their freedoms were taken away from them just bit by bit by bit. So it wasn't all just at once. It was just a little bit by a little bit by a little bit. So whenever we're getting things back, it's going to be the same again. We're getting them back a little bit, a little bit, a little bit, a little bit. So the change happens just as gradually almost as it did whenever it started. However, I'm definitely seeing a lot of people going back to farming, and farming being a lot more community driven. I'm also seeing people working less really, and just having a better work-life balance, not being as driven by the material possessions, being more driven to do things because we're happy to do it and because we're enjoying being with the family, and being with friends and having that relaxation time, and not feeling guilty because we haven't worked a 75-hour week. So I'm very much seeing that. I'm seeing electronics not being as commonplace. Now, I don't know if that means that the iPads and things like that are going to become a thing of the past, but I'm definitely seeing them not being as prominent as what they are now. And again, that could be through choice. That could be because the kids and the adults are having so much more fun, and they're so much happier that they're not needing those. I'm seeing the use of medication as well, being on a downward scale, and people looking for more holistic treatments for their ailments. One of the things, and this could be both physical and mental ailments as well, whenever we think of the whole mind-body connection, it could be, overall everything. But one of the things that she's really showing me here is people seeking out holistic treatments and holistic therapies, using things from the land like herbs, foods, things like that, very natural remedies, trees, plant medicine, things that we would really frown upon now, and you could only talk about it in certain circles. But she's also talking about people getting to the root cause and starting to connect the whole, well, my thoughts are like this, I'm very negative, I get really anxious, but I have all of this stomach issue, I've got really bad digestion, I've got an ulcer, and trying to really get to the root cause. Okay, so I know that these are connected, the thoughts and the anxiety and the digestive issue is connected. What is causing them? What can I do to eradicate this anxiety and these negative thought patterns? And really getting to the root cause of what is actually causing them in the first place, and treating it that way, rather than going to the doctor or the MD and just being like, oh, well, I've got depression, I've got anxiety. Oh, okay, well, we've got a tablet for that. I'm really seeing us coming away from that. One of the things as well that she was showing me was Pfizer. And now I'm not sure whether she's meaning specifically Pfizer or whether she's using that as a bit of an example, but I'm really seeing it being dismantled and being a much smaller version. And she's showing me lots of people leaving unemployed. So that would really signify to me that the pharmaceutical industry is really going to take a rather large hit here. And again, that might not be immediate, that might be longer term. You know, that might be over a number of years. Again, this change isn't necessarily going to happen overnight. The information that she's bringing through, we might start to see some of it come to fruition immediately. But we might also still be seeing it coming to fruition 6, 7, 8 years from now. She's not really bringing the timeline through. She's just really painting the picture of what is ahead. And she has just used the term picturesque. And I have this vision of these perfect kids, you know, the perfect kids that we all see in the movies, you know, it's like a 1950s movie. I feel like I'm watching a Doris Day movie. And I'm a big Doris Day fan, and I feel like I'm watching a Doris Day movie here. And I know life wasn't perfect then either by any stretch, but certainly if you're familiar with her movies, you know, By the Light of the Silvery Moon was one of my favorites. When you're watching that, and it's the perfect picket fence, painted white, you know, the kids were all very well behaved. It was all very innocent. And that's the sort of picture that they paint for me moving forward. Another thing as well, even that she had talked about before on a number of occasions, is us really getting closer to ourselves and developing a deeper connection to spirituality, and a lot of people coming into spiritual gifts. But also with that, I'm getting a lot of acceptance around, you know, you think of like transgender people and things like that. I know that it's very prominent in the news at the moment, but we seem to be becoming much more accepting of people, you know, very much live and let live, you know, let people be who they want to be and be authentic, but encouraging people to embrace who they are, and not encouraging change, but definitely embracing that self-love and encouraging self-love, you know, regardless of who we are. So we've got that. And yeah, it's just very much just a nicer way of life. That's a sort of the picture that she is painting, a bit more simple, you know, a bit more simple. But also at the same time, she has shown me abundance. You know, at the minute, I think, you know, whenever we look at the economy and how money is distributed, we have the very, very rich people, and then we have the very, very poor people, and then the average. But there's such a big gap in between the two. And what she has been showing me is that gap narrowing. So the rich are becoming less rich, and the poorer people who are maybe on the bottom rung of the income ladder are becoming, you know, more wealthier and becoming, you know, they're getting in a better financial position, really. So that gap between the bottom and the top is starting to narrow. So that's another thing that she is bringing me through. She has there's one other thing that she's wanting to talk about here, and she has said about an untoward occurrence, and she has said about something. So there's something untoward that is set to occur, and she's fingering a prominent masculine here. So there's a prominent man that she's sort of signaling. She's covering his face at the moment, so I can't actually see who this is. She said about a British person. I don't know if they're a politician, but she said a top person. So that would lead me to think that it's somebody very, very prominent, whether it's in the political field, royal family, business person. But she's certainly indicating towards a top. And she's saying about untoward behavior. So there's something that is happening or has happened, or there's been perhaps it could have been like a number of happenings where there's been some unsavory. She's saying about unsavory information that is set to come about this person, and it's somebody very prominent, and she's saying front page of the news. So to me, that is something that is going to be very, very prominent in across different news stories. And she has said that is set to occur in a short duration. And she said that it's set to cause a lot of embarrassment. And she has said that a lot of changes will occur at the top, or certainly there will be some sort of a significant change. And she's showing me somebody stepping back. Okay. She has just used the term abdication with me. Now, whenever I'm hearing abdication, that would indicate to me that is a member of the royal family, certainly, you know, a king, for example, who is abdicating their throne. I'm not sure where that term would be used outside of the royal family. But she's showing me somebody deciding against continuing forward on the path that they're on, because of it's like they've no other option. I don't know if it's their own choice to step back or whether it's enforced upon them, but she's showing me somebody stepping back, and she is bringing words in like shame. So there's something untoward that is set to come to fruition, and she's showing me a number of people against this person. My natural assumption here is that there has been something untoward that has happened with a number of different people that is set to come to the forefront. But she's not making it clear to me. I think if I was to give any more information like that, it would be me trying to join the dots, or and she's not really giving me that information. Okay, but that is certainly one thing that she is bringing forward, and she has said that that's set to occur in a short duration. And she has said about somebody being very red-faced, which again is just bringing that embarrassment and something through. Okay, so I guess, has anybody got any questions? There is a chat box, so you can type your question in if you want. There's no need to comment. I don't know if anybody has any questions about that, or if they want me to elaborate on anything a little bit more. I know there's quite a lot of information there, but again, I'm not sure exactly what order things are going to happen in. I don't know exactly when things are set to happen. I'm really just the messenger. I come and I obey their orders, and if they ask me to deliver certain information, I deliver it, and that be that. And I think it's very, very interesting to see the change in the world, but I also find it very interesting to have seen the change in my world and my life as well. From I have started on the spiritual journey, and I would always say to anybody, whether you get a reading for yourself or it's a reading for the general population, and you're being told of something that is a very, very drastic change to the current situation, or it's, especially if it's a private reading and you're being told something and you're thinking, no, definitely not, that would never happen in a million years. I would encourage you to try and take the approach of, never say never, because none of us really know exactly what is around the corner for us. And as I said, change happens gradually. So we might be thinking at that point, there's no way. But you know what? 6 months or 6 years down the line, your viewpoint could be very changed from what it is now, and we're always learning, and our knowledge and our belief system, yes, for some people it will be, very rigid and it will never change, but because we're always learning new knowledge and we're having new experiences, actually our belief system and our mindset might change. So yes, you might be thinking, no, there's no way I'm going to have a llama farm, and that might be a far stretch from your finance job that you do in the city at the moment, but 5 years from now you may have had some, goodness knows what's going to happen. There's a lot can happen in a 5-year period that would lead you down that path. And I would just encourage you to be a bit open-minded to the fact that, we sort of have a bit of an idea in mind whenever we're on this path in life of where we want to go, but there's nothing to say that you can't change direction and that you won't change direction. And I would certainly say from my experience, from my own experience now, and from that what I've witnessed with other people, the amount of people that I've had come back to me now to say, well, you said it was going to happen. I thought you were a rubbish psychic. However, it's now happened. I can totally see how it has taken shape. So it does happen a lot. And I would expect to still get that from people over a period of time. But, just be aware that things can change, and that, things do change. And I'm not trying to force that upon you. I'm just trying to, I suppose, plant the seed that your mindset could change, and you never really know exactly where you're going to end up in life. And if the universe is willing it, I talk about a belief in God. I wasn't always aware. I didn't always believe, and I'm still forming my own thoughts around what that is. However, I certainly believe in a higher power, and, you know, that we live on and that spirit lives on. And that, you know, that is just undeniable to me from the experiences that I've had, but I haven't always had that belief. But if they will it, it will happen. If it is supposed to happen, it will happen. And there will be various events in your life that will happen, and make sure that you're led on that path. I think Rosie is starting to get a little bit frustrated. But is there any questions from anybody or anything else that you are particularly curious about? No, I hope that you have found it interesting. Thank you, Kim. You're very, very welcome. You know, I hope that you have found it interesting. I get so much information from spirit, and I'm always wanting to deliver more and more and more information, but you know, it's hard sometimes, but it's scattered and it's all in different places. And I do want to be able to share more with people and share more insights. And it certainly sounds from the information that Spirit have given me that, you know, there's going to be a lot more confirmation, I would say, of the information that I am bringing through and the accuracy of the information. So, you know, I'm confident that as time goes on, they're going to be using me to bring more information through that can, you know, help support people as well as forewarn them of different things that might be coming up. So, you know, I am looking forward to that. So Kim, that is a good thing. That is a good question. So do I have any advice with trying to gently share this information with your loved ones? The one thing that she has said is not to force it. You know, it's, you know, you have obviously come here of your own free will. You opted for it, you wanted to be here, but not everybody is prepared to hear it. And she's actually saying as well, you know, depending on who you're giving the information to, you know, you could risk facing backlash and it causing friction with people. And she has said about sharing it at your own discretion, really, you know, or putting it on social media or something like that. But she is saying that, like, not everybody is ready to hear the information at this stage. And, you know, I have experienced this on my own personal journey, and it's definitely, you know, there's one aspect of it where we're trying to help people and help prepare people for what's ahead. But we also want to, you know, we want to be believed as well. We want to be accepted. We don't really want to be viewed as, you know, being a lunatic or, you know, anything like that, because we believe in stuff like this. But at the same time, there is also this accepting that actually people are on their own path. And if they're not ready to hear it, they're just not ready to hear it, really. So I guess it would be, you know, up to your own discretion what you would do with that information or how you would share it with people. But she would say, you know, drop it into conversation casually, mention if there's a curiosity, you know, you could continue on with it, but she wouldn't be forcing it. But it's up to you what you would choose to do with it. So is there any other questions? I hope that has helped, Kim, by the way. It's difficult. I know it's very difficult because you do want to help people and you want to be encouraging, you know, we'll stock up on your lentils and, you know, get in before the rush happens. But, you know, I suppose the reality is that we don't really know exactly when it's set to occur anyway. But the likelihood if you're around people who don't believe in this sort of stuff, the likelihood that they're going to take the information on board anyway is slim, and it might just be a wasted effort. Kim, I am also very cognizant of who I talk to about these sort of things. Probably not so much now. I definitely share the information where I share information. Like, I've got the community going now, I've got my TikTok, I've got my YouTube channel, so I put the information out there and people are able to freely sort of absorb it and take it on board. But I've certainly learned that not everybody is eager to, you know, be a part of this and to take the information on board. And, you know, sometimes no matter what we do to prove things or what information we show people, it's just not their time. to believe. And we do need skeptics as well. You know, we need people that question things. And I think in some regard, we don't question things enough, you know, especially when it comes to politics and things like that. We're very, very quick to give our power away. You know, it's the social norm that there's politicians and people in power, and, you know, we give a lot of trust over to them and we don't question. And really we should. So I can't really encourage questioning when it comes to things like that, and then say, well, no, don't dare question me. Like, you know, so I do think that it's healthy to have people that will question and challenge us and challenge our own beliefs as well, you know, because sometimes we do need to be grounded and quizzed. But yeah, you know, I definitely would, you know, encourage some skepticism and things like that. But just, yeah, not everybody, as you're aware, not everybody is eager to receive this information or is prepared even to accept it at that stage. We all have our own journeys. I often wonder, are the skeptics destined to be skeptics? You know, did they come here for that purpose, to try and give the spiritual lot, you know, a bit of a tough time? But maybe they're just not ready to listen just yet. Anything else? It's been lovely being on tonight. I quite enjoy coming on and sharing this information. I'm a bit of a chatterbox, not that you would ever think it. So it's quite nice to be able to come on and share the information and, you know, make it available to you. But if there's no other questions, I will let you all get on and enjoy the rest of your days. I don't know whereabouts you are in the world, but it's 8:30 here in England where I am. So I'm going to go and enjoy a cup of tea, because this one that I've got beside me has went a bit cold, and obviously the British love their tea. So I'm going to go and have a hot cup of tea and get my daughter into the bath, and then get myself ready for bed, have a nice early night. So it has been absolutely lovely having you all on, and I hope that you have enjoyed that. And you know, I hope that none of you are leaving in fear. That is definitely not the aim of this, to be leaving in fear. There is an awful lot to look forward to here, and there's a lot of positives that are coming from, you know, from this. It's just sometimes change has to come about with a wrecking ball. You know, we have to come in and sweep it away so much, and you know, and make way for the positive change. But yes, you too, Courtney, thank you very much. And I hope you have a wonderful evening. And obviously anything else, you know, I'll schedule through the community as well.